And regrettably, we are missing a panelist, Ed Couchman. Yep, you can choose your ladies first. So Ed Couchman from Snap is not able to make it today. So playing Ed Couchman from Snap will be me. So if people have questions for Ed, I will run over to where he would have been seated and will answer as if I were Ed. No, we're actually not doing that. It's somewhat unfortunate he couldn't make it today, but we do have an incredibly esteemed panel. And if you'd like to introduce yourselves, we'll start with Lisette.
Hi, I'm Lisette Preston-Barnes. I just joined TiVo, and I'm leading the expansion of TiVo's advanced advertising and analytics business across Europe. It's definitely an exciting time in our business, and I think TiVo is sitting in the forefront of some really cool data and tech innovation that's helping consumers connect with the content they want and love. And that's good for them, good for content owners, good for providers, and of course, advertisers in the end.
Thank you. Lorne?
Hey everyone, Lorne Brown, CEO of Operative. Operative helps mainly TV companies reduce the complexities of running a multi-platform ad business. We offer a cloud-native ad sales solution and want to give our customers choice of market. And as they go out and innovate, which I know is the topic of this panel, really excited to share some thoughts.
Clive.
I'm Clive Page. I'm the head of product data and analytics at Finecast. Finecast is the Group M response to the change in viewing behaviour, I guess the resulting complexity that spins up, and as well as the opportunity. So what Finecast do, we advance TV advertising for both brands and viewers. We try to combine the power of TV, everyone knows, with the precision of advanced data targeting. And I look after products, which is kind of what we sell. The data is how we segment and target. And then the analytics is how we measure and how we work out how successful it was.
Excellent. And Bob?
Yeah, Bob Ivins. I'm Chief Data Officer of NCC. NCC is a joint venture of 3 large cable companies in the U.S. In the U.S., unlike in the U.K. and I guess the rest of Europe, as part of the distribution agreements, the cable companies get 2 minutes of inventory on every channel in every hour that they distribute, and we help our owners monetize those 2 minutes. Historically, we've been really recognized as an ad rep firm, but as the industry moves towards better data, better targeting, and better measurement, we're building an ad tech platform within that environment to support those activities.
It strikes me as interesting that despite the fact that everybody on the panel sits in roughly different parts of the value chain, everyone represents their own contribution as a platform. So Bob has a platform for sales. Clive has a platform for his and products. Lorne, you actually have a platform, so thank you for bringing.
You're welcome.
Right, as is TiVo. So that's an interesting place to start. If we like, let's just get to it. We haven't heard. This is the Connected TV Summit, but for some reason we've been hearing a lot about addressability and data. And so let's start at the idea of connected TVs. I was fascinated by what we just heard, that 80% of the sets in India remain CRTs, not flat screens, and disconnected. Just that connection, what does it mean for, we'll start here on the TiVo side, and how has that changed? All of you have been in the business for a long time, so we'll start with there and we'll see where we go.
Okay. So the US is probably the most advanced market for connected TV. This market, the UK, Europe, obviously expanding. I think connected TV to me, and particularly I think to TiVo, means opportunities to probably aggregate content and personalization across different sources. So again, the ad opportunity in that case is if people are finding, or consumers are finding, the content they want across all these sources in this connected TV environment, then we can find better ways to serve up ads to them. And I think that's where the opportunity is.
Lorne?
Yeah, I think that connected piece is the right idea. And when we think about growth markets, what TV can do to grow, they've got to innovate, right? And the TV companies need to innovate on an incredibly complex current stack where linear and ratings that are supported by things like Barb and Bark in India and Nielsen in the US, all sort of run on these ecosystem swim lanes. And innovation often requires you to go across those swim lanes. And TV companies are not good at that, right? This idea of supporting a fragmented supply chain and pointing it at a new market where you're competing with digital companies that have better tech, in some cases better data. Everyone needs to be prepared for that. And I think you could talk about addressable or CTV and dip your toe in the water of all these different things, but the reality is that the TV businesses need to create and aggregate their supply chains. They need to work closely with each other to create scale. And I don't believe long-term these one-offs of addressability, for example, or even connected TV are going to scale on their own. They're very, very tiny for all the broadcasters here in the UK, in the US, 90% still linear. So again, this portfolio, this TV as a platform to compete with larger companies needs to come to fruition, and that's going to come down to picking the right platforms, investing in AI, audience attribution, things like that.
Isn't some of it whether or not Clive will put the money behind those proper platforms?
Well, I would say just going back to because I think you were talking about collaboration there and making sure that everyone works together. I think what we're trying to do in Finecast is actually put money back into TV. So make TV as effective and responsive and as desirable as the other forms of advertising. And so we're trying to bring everyone together. We're trying to, my boss talks about an ecosystem play. The idea is that if everyone works together in TV, then it's an extremely compelling proposition. The new viewing that we see and the new technology that underpins that is a huge opportunity in terms of having the addressability and the data and the targeting and the responses from all that. That suddenly you have a brilliant ecosystem, but you just need to make it all work together, and that's exactly where Finecast is playing. We try and work with all the distributors, all the broadcasters, all the measurement people, as well as the demand side, which is where Group M comes in terms of bringing in the money.
So you're the orchestration layer between some of these disparate pieces to make it all function for your customers.
That's what we're trying to do, yes.
That's a big job.
Yes, big aspirations.
Bob, are you doing the same in the US?
So there's a couple things I was going to say. One is, there's a reason that two platforms control 65% of the ad spend online. And that's because it's easy to sell, easy to buy, and easy to execute. I think the opposite is the case on TV, especially in an addressable environment. And I think Lorne alluded to this earlier, flat is the new up for TV. And the reason it's that way is because digital has the advantages of data, targeting, and measurement. I think that, the distributors have that first-party relationship that enables them to understand what people are doing. They can tie together behavioral data, profiling data, et cetera, to define segments and deliver advertising to them, but they don't really have the reach. So they need to work together. And on the opposite side, the media owners in the US, for example, NBC can reach almost any household in the US, with content that they distribute. But they don't have the first-party relationship, and that's why Viacom is out there buying Pluto and NBC is delivering an app, et cetera. So I think that a number of platforms will be built for television. It's not going to be one. So there'll be a few players that are out there, but we need to make TV advertising, we need take back the advantages or neutralize the advantages that digital has, and we need to make TV advertising easy to buy, easy to sell, easy to execute. And you can't really then compete with the reach, the engagement, and the brand-friendly content that's out there. Video content is still fantastic.
So Lorne, you had a proposition regarding outcomes when we spoke. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that selling outcomes requires lots of different things. I think the first issue is that every company that invents a data product and a way to measurement all of a sudden splinters this idea of TV as a platform further. And I think the second problem is that every media company, we just saw Mediaset, right? How many screens were on one screen, right? Like 5 or 6 or 7. And so, but aggregating those disparate inventory sets to actually have the power of a portfolio that can be simplified into the view that the buyer wants to see, removing that complexity, that doesn't exist. And I think just the third is there's no one media company that's big enough on their own to create any attention like Facebook and Google can create. They all have to work together. So picking markets requires you to pick partners and band together so that you can actually go after that. So Outcomes, I think, is the single biggest example of that. And I think what you see is a lot of TV companies, trying to invest in the point solutions they think they're going to need, right? The attribution systems, the audience optimization, the inventory algorithms, and things like that. But they're ignoring all those connective tissue issues where platforms in other industries have kind of solved them before. So I think that's the problem.
So this orchestration, who's supposed to play what position? So Lisette, I know that you're currently the operating system for Liberty Global.
Correct.
So that's an interesting position. Tell us what you're doing, and then we'll ask if she's doing the right things to facilitate that orchestration. We'll get to that.
So you want me to answer the Liberty Global?
No, I'd like you to answer for TiVo.
For TiVo. But I just wanted to pivot off of what he was saying.
Sure.
Because collaboration is a must, and we can't have these walled gardens. So if we're going to have transactions being more seamless in TV and continue to protect the premium that we're able to charge because it's in a large screen that's commanding the attention of a household, we need to be able to have collaboration and more data flow and exchange. So, and these walled gardens are definitely going to prevent us from getting there sooner than faster. So again, there's lots of big media companies that are forging ahead, they're innovative, they're able to come up with these measurements, and there's no standardization across our industry at the moment.
And is that impactful for you and your customers at Finecast?
Yeah, I mean, standardization, I was going back to the breakfast briefing this morning, where we were talking about measurement. So obviously there is a measurement, a gold standard measurement of TV in the UK, and we are making very good inroads into be able to doing holistic measurement across all devices. We're not really there yet. I think the theory is that we'll never quite catch up with the viewing habits of the users to have the sort of full-on picture of how people are viewing, and therefore you don't get the measurement, you don't therefore get the investment off the back of it because you can't always justify it. I mean, what we're trying to do is we're trying to navigate those choppy waters at the moment in terms of, there are a number of walled gardens, people are operating within themselves and going into market with point solutions, and we're trying to sort of break down those walls and offer holistic measurement, reach and frequency across these different walled gardens. It's tough, it's not an easy thing.
So, Bob?
Well, the identity graph is the connective tissue for that, right? You're going to need some sort of way to understand behavior across device, and I think in the US there's a bunch of single threads running through one ID graph, and we probably need to diversify that a bit, but I think that's the answer to that question, and it's a problem that needs to be solved. I mean, and I guess the last point I would make on this is, clearly we're moving from a probabilistic world to a deterministic world, and I think Outcomes is a great way to think about it. We need to. TV is very impactful, and it hasn't really gotten its credit over the last couple of years because of digital. So I think we need to fight back.
So we're supposed to be discussing the new opportunities. So, and I think we talked. We are sitting right in front of some new opportunities. I think it's very much telling of our industry that we talk about our challenges first. We come and we, expiate ourselves when we say, forgive us, we haven't collaborated as well as the digital side. So some opportunities that any of you are currently seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to pull some of this together. I think I like to look at other industries a lot. And other industries, we're not the first industry that needed a market to grow because they were facing competition and were falling flat and needed to find new revenue. And so one of the examples I really loved that I learned about was the story about Alibaba, right? And a lot of brands were having trouble getting into China, which is a new market. And it's challenging to go at it on their own because it's a Chinese language, there's Chinese currency, there's payment methods, there's the trust of the Chinese people. Are they willing to buy from a brand on a one-off? And so Alibaba created this product called Tmall. And Tmail is like a virtual shopping mall where all these brands can put their stuff, and it comes with Alipay and this and that, all the familiar things in the Chinese market. And all of a sudden, companies like Nike and all these brands started to scale dramatically, right? Because they found this platform. But the unique thing about Alibaba is that they're a SaaS technology. And a lot of people don't realize that that's different from the e-commerce companies. Alibaba generates $30 billion last year in a single day. They call it Singles Day to celebrate being single. So for all you singles out there, you can go to buy some stuff for yourself. But the point is that it's SaaS. It helps unblock a complex market. They share data. So if you're using AI and other things behind the scenes, you could optimize the purchase funnel. And they take only 2%. Whereas the e-commerce companies will take 10 to 15%. They don't share data, and by the way, they compete with you. And I think this story is really relevant because in advertising, we have choices to make when we pick platforms, right? We can go with a programmatic ad tech approach, which seems like it's an easy thing to do, but in reality, that's more of the e-commerce model, right? I'm in a pool where I might be being competed with. I have to maybe pay 10%, and they don't share as much data with me because their only interest is to take my inventory, right? So I think that there's safe partners in the space that are either creating platforms or have deep relationships, and you know, these two gentlemen right here, you know, Finecast and NCC are doing that. Close relationship with Comcast, Cox Charter, have a lot of data, work with a lot of programmers, can bring that in and create a safe marketplace. And same on your side, right? You're out there aggregating, and of course there's a lot of buying power sitting behind Group M, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course you're trying to go across everything and make sure that the media companies can make the right decisions. So all this is going to be intertwined. I think you're going to see stacks emerging of large marketplaces where there'll be 5 companies in the US and 3 here, and they're all going to leverage slightly different versions of this, and certainly, you know, partners like yourself to actually to make it work.
The issue though is, you know, there's existing business models and existing business. There, you know, in the TV world, there's $70 billion at stake, and those traditional relationships have, you know, they've been around for a long time. And I think that, you know, we're trying to do something in the U.S. and, you know, everybody gets the logic of it, but then it comes down to, wait a second, I have this business to run, I'm a CEO. If I lean into you, then I give that up, and it's like, I get it, but not on my watch. You know, come back to me when I'm dead and gone, and we can have a go. But, you know, I think there's a number of those traditional relationships that are dated and are going to be hard. Like if you compare it to digital, and even the Alibaba example that you used earlier, it was purpose built. You know, you can start from scratch and you can do these things. I think that the struggle we have is the political thing, and I don't mean that in the sense of just pure politics, just the people side of the business and the business relationships that have been there for 10, 15, 20 years.
But you're right in the middle of that, Clive. You are those intermediated relationships between brands and their dollars and their media destinations. So help Bob.
Yeah.
I don't think Bob needs help. But I was going to come back, so it was an opportunity question, and I think we kind of we missed the opportunity.
We answered a totally different question, I think.
I mean, I'd say in terms of the Group M, so we had Finecast has been around for 2 years. We've been operating actually before that without a brand, even before that. So we were trying to get ahead of this. We appreciate that, you know, there was change coming, and you know, we wanted to be ready. So Finecast is up and running, and we're doing good numbers at the moment. So, you know, we definitely see the opportunity. Going back to addressability, you know, if you look at what Mediatel were doing before, you know, they're launching live linear addressable, they have VOD addressable, they have in-program addressability within the display ads. You know, all of this is a lot of this is incremental. So you're taking, again, the power of TV. You know, everyone's still watching TV. Okay, I mean, ironically, we actually work in an industry where probably everyone in this room, no one actually admits to watching TV. But, you know, everyone's still watching 4 hours of TV, and it's the compelling nature of the advertising message there, made better by addressability. So you have all the variations of that. You have more precision. People are willing to pay more. You have top up of incremental reach. The value for the advertisers is much greater. All these different opportunities are within addressability within TV. It's just a case of we need to make it, to Bob's point earlier, we need to make it easier to transact, and we need to make it measurable. So we need to start breaking down these walled gardens and be collaborative.
Yeah, I think to Bob's point, if TV was invented all over again and everyone had addressable boxes, we could just have at it, right?
Exactly.
We could share data and we could
Start from
deliver
scratch.
audiences, and it would
So
be
let's find a small island and we'll launch this.
no problem. Set up a global ad server. Everything would be super easy.
You are all witness to the birth of a company.
Let's just do that. Let's just blow the whole thing up and then start over.
Yeah.
But
There would be no ratings model.
that's
There'd be an
right.
audience-based buying.
That's right. And that would be good for you.
But the model's breaking. I didn't mean to interrupt, but the model's breaking. I mean, so if you take a look at, in the U.S., I'm sorry about that, I'm using that because I'm not familiar with the paid TV business here, but, Comcast gets probably like the rest of the distributors, $150, $200 a month. In the Comcast situation, 23 million people. That money goes from people to Comcast. Comcast pays for content. Advertisers, pay to be in that content. So the money starts flowing around like that. And all of a sudden you have Netflix, Amazon pull a couple $2 billion out. So all of these things are going to start to crumble. Like I'm saying, that business model is getting old.
But we heard earlier that scarcity is driving value. Right? That was in one of our presentations earlier, which is
It's
something.
supply and demand. As reach goes down,
Right, so it's
Prices
the
should
only
go up.
product where and I think at some point we could touch upon efficacy versus efficiency, right? So a lot of the digital tools are driving efficiency, and I think, back to Clive, and I'd also like to hear from Lisette, because I know you have some formats which are differentiated from just interruption, but from the buy side, I'm interested in efficient efficacy. It can't be one or the other. So, I'm desperate to understand where these new opportunities that represent both, because we've heard for a long time about digital efficiency, and we've heard for a long time about the efficacy of big advertising on the center of the living room for awareness and driving consideration. But what are the opportunities for both? Where do those get fused?
Well, there's no large media company that I know about that, if they have an addressable presence, is not also talking about data-driven linear and converting, traditional rating point deals to impressions deals or data deals, and roping in OTT and connected TV and everything else to basically try to create that scale. And that's part of the problem. So, if you're an operator, then you're in great shape, right? Because you've got data, you've got content, you've got all this stuff. I own the pipes, I'm the last mile. It's great. If you're a content provider, you're kind of in a little bit of trouble, right? Because you've got this scarcity box, right? Here in the UK, people sell % of market and in linear, and no one wants to disrupt that. And then people are, have these new product offerings, but they're in their own swim lane because they don't want to creep into that bucket that everyone's protecting so much.
Well, they're not only in their own lane. We heard from Brian, his last words for us were, if you are a rights owner, build your own direct-to-consumer relationship. So
that's going on. I mean, Viacom just bought Pluto for that very reason.
But Pluto is an aggregator of many.
Yeah, but NBC is developing their own app. I mean, they recognize the importance of the first-party relationship.
And Discovery did it, and it had its challenges. I mean, we were talking earlier. I'm curious about some of the opportunities and the formats that you're making available.
Sure. So what's interesting is that the topic of personalization and making sure that consumers find the content they want. This is sort of the model around helping operators not churn subscribers. But in that, TiVo have worked up a personalized content discovery platform that helps search and recommendations. As part of that, we recognize there's also an opportunity to help content owners actually promote their content. And the model is built on a predictive sort of off of the back of viewing behaviors that we're collecting that data off the box or off our platform. And it's return path data, so we know if they actually reacted to a tile in the carousel that was, okay, hi Andrew, we know you love Friends, so
Okay.
You watch Friends, right? No? Okay.
All the time.
So, we're going to serve other companies.
Multiple times, reruns.
Binge.
Sequentially,
Yes.
Yeah.
from the first season forward. Always.
So that's done in a predictive model, but we can do a suggestive model that's not completely inorganic to the consumer's experience.
So that's fascinating because that is a paid-for tune-in placement,
Correct.
which is super touchy in the TV world, right? Particularly date and time. So that's an interesting opportunity for a rights owner. But if that rights owner has already put together their own direct-to-consumer relationship and is trying to bypass all of these other opportunities, I mean, eventually, like, there's friction in a lot of these places, and I think, I really do want to hear from Finecast if part of your role is to be the point of exchange between the dollars and the people providing the platforms and the audiences. What is the prescription? I want to open it up for questions from the audience too. From where you sit, because you see the needs of both parties to some degree, and that's where your bread is buttered. What advice do you have for this group and the people here on how to not create potential new conflicts while trying to solve problems?
Yeah, I mean, I don't pretend with sort of the TV Switzerland and can mediate all parties. I mean, we try and work with everyone. I think the notion of going direct to consumer is very good, obviously, for broadcasters because they don't have that relationship. They haven't had it previously in the broadcast system, but now there is an opportunity of doing that. But to an extent, you still have to work with the distribution. You have the distribution is either the TV distribution business, which is expensive and big, and you lack that touch point with the user, or you're running on a Samsung TV, or you're running on Apple TV. There are still intermediaries in place with whom you have to work with for you to then produce the content. And I guess, produce the viewing of the content, and then you can sell the advertising off the back of this. And I think it's very much, a couple of people have said around, what is it that these TV companies are doing? What is it? They're actually selling viewers. They're selling their product is the viewers. It's not the content. And it's just a way of, however you can get your product, your viewers, to market. It sounds like cattle to market, but your product, your viewers to market, to be able to then sell them. If you can do that in a sort of democratized way that's easy to buy and sell, we will facilitate that as Finecast. We are bringing in play as much of the mediation as possible within the different players, and we're also pointing the demand at it. So we are looking at the Group M infrastructure and building out the processes and the understanding and the knowledge within the Group M infrastructure to be able to, I always think of the analogy of pointing the demand hose in a certain direction, and we're trying to point that at adjustable TV because it's a win-win, or it's a win-win-win. So it's a win for the viewers because they get better advertising, potentially they get less advertising, which I think is a good thing for viewers. Potentially, okay, there's a potential there. But the TV broadcasters, they get more money because this is to an extent incremental, but it's high yielding, it's more efficient. Mm-hmm. There is efficacy in there as well. And then it's a win for the brands because they're getting what they want. They're getting the right product, which is the right set of viewers. So that's where we're trying to get to.
Bob, how addressable is the U.S. market today? How many addressable households?
Depends who you talk to and depends how you find addressability. I mean, VODs, there's high penetration in addressable VOD. I mean, Comcast, almost all their footprint has it. So I would say half of the US TV market is addressable today.
But on a household basis? Okay.
Maybe a little bit less.
And Lorne, you're busy sort of facilitating the other half and with operators, is that right?
Well, you've got anything that's addressable is sold more like a digital video product than a linear product. So we support both, right? We're trying to liberate media companies from their legacy tech stacks by giving them cloud native technology that are rewriting the rules of how support the way linear has been transacted, but give them room to sell digital alongside it or have a convergent deal alongside it and give them flexibility to sell whichever currency or transaction method or cost method that they want to use to target that particular market. So kind of removing that back-end complexity and simplifying it for the salespeople and the buyers. And I think, the interesting point that was brought up earlier, you got to be a buyer and a seller in the new market. And if you're creating your own OTT service, you're potentially limited in terms of what content you can actually show on that service, because companies like Comcast, for example, don't like that. And they're going to say, look, if you show that content, then I'm going to pay you less money, media company. And so there's this dynamic, and that kind of flushes itself out. But I think the reality is there's these marketplaces that are forming. Some are going to be the marketplaces, and some are going to be the companies that participate in the marketplaces, but are also selling on their own. So he's a buyer and a seller. He's a buyer and a seller today. And I think all media companies are going to, in one way or another, have to become buyers and sellers if they want to create enough scale.
Yeah, well, Comcast is a top 3 or 4 advertiser and a top 3 or 4 ad seller.
Sure.
That's an amazing position.
So does this mean that the big advertising opportunity is for everybody to be in the business of arbitrage, large, small?
I wouldn't call it arbitrage. I would call it, platform uniting, right? Taking premium inventory and putting it in places where companies have enough scale to get the attention of advertisers, and everybody wins. No arbitrage.
Okay,
right?
so it's essentially getting rid of the
There's a rev share, right? But it's not like, real-time bidding.
Excellent. So is this part of the new company you and Bob are starting? Is that?
We're looking for a market.
Okay. I do want to open up to questions for those who have. It's been an incredibly patient audience. If not, I'm going to keep interrogating our guests. Looks like we have one in the back in red.
Clive, how big is the threat of fraud in connected TV inventory? We've already seen a couple of big examples, one being in Q4 last year that Double Verify uncovered. And as we see a lot of money flowing into here, into the channel, what's the kind of level of threat that we see?
So it's a good question. So the way that Finecast work is that, so we work with, we have a special division within Group M around sourcing supply. So we only ever work directly. We don't work programmatically. We use programmatic pipes, but it's always direct bought. So we only ever work directly with the broadcasters. So it's not a case of buying through exchanges and such like. So what we're doing is, to be honest, I would suggest there's zero fraud within that workspace. I think the problem comes is when you start to work programmatically through the exchange, then you get, the fraudulent bidding, you get you get the spoofed domains. All that is, depending on who you believe, either a problem or a serious problem. But with the direct buy, it's completely eliminated.
Excellent. Are there other questions? If not, I'm going to ask each of you to sum up. We'll start with Lisette.
I think that the two key things and the messages that have been resonating across this conference is that we need to, first of all, the data flow. We need to have that exchange, that collaboration. The walled gardens have to come down. So that's going to enable more standardized ROI measurement and better enhanced attribution. Sorry, I lost my word. But the other thing that's super important, and I think it's key to everything, and we've all talked about it in one shape or form on this panel today, which is basically we have to come up with a unified currency for trading, as well as a unified method to go about that buying and selling, that transacting of media. If it continues to be difficult for marketers to buy TV, and especially in this new market where things like fraud, because we're applying programmatic tools to buying TV in a connected TV environment, come up, questions about that, we need to be able to, at least have standards and measures to do that. And that's, again, going to call for unification.
Excellent. Thanks. Lorne?
Yeah, I would
15
say
seconds.
if I were to take home a couple of things, I'd like to give out next steps for people, just to have something to talk about when they get back to there. So participating in any new market beyond the current markets today requires broadcaster collaboration. I've been in this room several times. I'll repeat it again. People that want to enter new markets that are a lot like each other should be talking a lot, right? And what are the currencies? And sure, maybe there's one single currency, but the reality is we're going to be in a world with probably multiple currencies for a long, long time. So coordinating their efforts around technology to unify things that help automate and get them really tight and competitive before they enter a lucrative market. I think that's one. I think two is everyone in the room who has a monolithic TV system or ad sales or traffic, these are very expensive to support. And what we've found, and this retail, this happened, if you can break those monoliths down that require Oracle, and you could be spending $1 million a year for a product, but $5 million a year to support its back end because it sits on-prem. That's how these systems work. Go modernize, pay $1 million a year, use that $4 million to create some P&L leverage, start to invest in AI, data scientists, and other things, and you could literally start the process of innovating and getting ready, and then use that synergy with the group that you form in order to get there, because everyone needs to control their own destiny. There's going to be no standards organization that's going to save everybody. Everyone's going to kind of do it themselves.
Clive?
That's my opinion.
I was going to say, because I had some points down for Ed in terms of Snapchat, but I won't pretend to
You can channel
make a
Ed.
statement for him.
No, it's fine. Please.
He made a statement enough by not coming.
Yeah,
He did.
he did, very true. So I think maybe not a takeaway, but just a point of view, I think it's really interesting where we're seeing distribution going, because I think in the olden days there was one way of distributing, and it was fairly standard. It was unilateral. It went one way. I think what we're seeing now is the distribution is completely changing. So you're getting, the platforms are all changing. They're all building out addressability. We're seeing technology move. So we're seeing the ATSC 3 coming in at some point. We're seeing the next iteration of the next iteration of mobile should allow for huge amounts of bandwidth, which will allow for UHD streaming and such like. So all this is it feels like it's coming. It feels like it's kind of Game of Thrones. Winter's coming, but it's actually summer, I guess. Summer's coming. So all of these things are really going to improve the way we watch TV and the way that we can interact with the TV and what we as the TV industry can do with TV. So I think it's really important. I think the important thing is to make sure the right people win that battle for the distribution.
Not the White Walkers.
Not the White Walkers. So, I'll let everyone here make up their own minds as to who the White Walkers are. But there's a potential that we could be the army of the dead or whatever it is.
Bob, you got to continue this metaphor before we let them go.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I could do a Moneyball baseball analogy, but maybe that'll get lost in the audience, so I'll skip that one. I think that collaboration is key. I think harmonization is key. I think that listening to customers is key. The one thing I would say is if you do penetration on one side of an axis and time on the other, and throw up a bunch of charts, newspaper subscriptions, that's going like this and like this. Landlines like this and like this. Record sales like this and like this. Paid TV subscription is kind of in that secular decline, or at the beginning stage of it, and the business models are going to change. I think the industry kind of needs to wake up to that, have a hard look in the mirror, and face these facts and recognize that we need to collaborate to really drive this forward.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you all for sticking with us. We know that we sat between yourselves and lunch, and please, a hand for our panel.